Bear down. Let's go.
Welcome back to Mully Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 670. The Score. Ruthie Polinsky in for Mully today. Time now to go out to the Atturo Tire Hotline. Atturo, new tires for spring. Atturo.com, where you find Dan Wiederer, who reports on the Bears for the Chicago Tribune and does the Take the North podcast with Mark Grody. Good morning, Dan. How's it going?
Doing good. How are you guys?
Doing well. So this afternoon, Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson will be addressing the Bears media. I imagine you will be there at Hallis Hall. How much do you expect them, Dan, to lean into, or how will they address the notion that this offseason is one that they are winning and how much buzz they are creating? Will they lean into that or resist that because of the expectations that come with it?
I mean, I don't think you declare victory. This is, again, I'll say it emphatically, this is a football team that lost 12 games last year and finished 6 games out of third place in the NFC North. I think they are giving themselves a chance to have a chance, and that's what you wanted to see in this offseason. You wanted to see, for once, all of the talk of opportunity turn into results. You had salary cap space. You had an opportunity in free agency to go out and improve your roster, and you've done that. You've got draft capital to work with for next month, and you've got 4 picks in the top 75. You want to see the roster continue to build that way. But I think it's really easy for folks on the outside to think that March is some sort of playing stage and that there's winners and losers and victories and losses. And it's just not how it works in the NFL. And so what you're trying to do is improve your roster so that when the games begin, you can actually win what matters.
Dan, is there any free agency need that the Bears have yet to fill? Obviously, the big wave, I think, of the splash moves has probably come and gone. But are there any free agency guys on the market where you think the Bears could find a need? Some of these guys that, are maybe hanging around and are a little cheaper.
It's funny because at the start of last week, Ruthie, I made my list of top needs for this team, and it got fluid really quickly as they started to make trades before signings could occur. And so you addressed your needs on the offensive line pretty emphatically. You went out on the defensive front and added 2 guys that should be immediate contributors, if not difference makers. I still think that you need to find depth at receiver and figure out what that looks like in the various waves of free agency and figure out how you can add some guys there that can help. I'll be interested to know if they have any interest at all in circling back with Keenan Allen, or if Keenan Allen has any interest in circling back with them if the price comes to a spot that makes sense for them. And so I think that's an area that you'd like to see. I'd like to know a little bit more about the vision in the running backs room, and you obviously have the draft to use to address that as well. But they're moving in the right direction, and now I think there's going to be a little bit of a phase here where you wait and you let some of these free agency waves crash, and then you see what's left on the shore.
Does that make sense to you, Keenan Allen maybe coming back to the Bears? And I guess as you answer that question, would you say that Keenan Allen had a positive effect on Caleb Williams last year?
I mean, on the latter question, I think that Caleb really enjoyed playing with Keenan, and I think he understood that in big moments, third downs, and got to have it plays, that he had a guy that he could trust to be where he was going to be, can run routes like the best of them. Like this is not a move I was advocating a month and a half ago. I don't know what the price tag will be. So if you can get him on a really deep hometown discount and he wants to stick around and still be a part of this, and an offense that obviously is improving and now has a guy that has shown his chops as a play caller, maybe there is a chance to circle back. But we'll kind of touch that button today and see what it turns up.
I wonder how DJ Moore would feel about that. Right? I mean, that's sort of the guy that I think he's the guy. He's going to be here. He's the future. Rome Odunze, you want to see him get more involved. That's your draft pick. So I just wonder, because at a point during the season, Dan, it felt like Keenan Allen was the guy for Caleb Williams. And you just wonder if maybe the front office coaching staff is kind of ready to move on from that.
And if they do, that makes sense as well. I think you just got to kind of feel it out and figure out what's best for that room, but also what's best for your quarterback. Because again, like these next 2 years are all about getting Caleb Williams on the ascent, and I talk about it all the time, even with the teams that I coach in the youth ranks, that you want to go from the staircase to the escalator and eventually to the elevator. And so whatever can get Caleb to that rapidly moving ascent is what you have to prioritize everything of your football team around, and we'll see which direction they go.
What did you think of the defensive linemen they added?
Well, look, like I said I'm losing track of the days here. I guess it was Monday that the Grady Jarrett addition really intrigues me and really adrenalizes me, because that's a dude that is just so disruptive and plays with that level of passion and edge and nastiness that you want your defense to be built around. Dennis Allen spent 10 years in the division. Now, obviously, he's coaching the other side of the ball, primarily in New Orleans, but I'm sure he knows a lot about what Grady Jarrett did to make game days difficult on the New Orleans Saints. And so, you add a guy that's proven. You got to find the right role for him. Understanding he's in his 30s and the tank isn't going to be as full as it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But you got a guy there that, boy, it just feels like such a smart addition at a position where you want to get some of that interior pressure. And then Odengbo, I need to hear more. I need to see more. I want to watch it with my own eyes. I want to hear what their vision is, because clearly this is a dice roll on upside and traits, and we'll see what they can squeeze out of him.
You wonder, I think it's a great point about Grady Jarrett having been in the same division as Dennis Allen. And it does feel like Ben Johnson has his fingerprints all over these moves. I'm curious what you think, or what you've learned, maybe that role relationship has grown into between Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles. And I'm sure we'll hear more this afternoon too.
Yeah. And that's why, like, I just feel like every time we get a chance to hear from these two in the coming months is going to be an educational experience to kind of feel how their relationship is evolving, to feel out the vision of Ben Johnson, the philosophies and the way he goes about things. He's obviously, from the minute he stepped on stage at Hallis Hall in January, has expressed a want to be aggressive. The moves these last 2 weeks have shown that aggressiveness is in the DNA, and that's, as a play caller, it's in roster building. And clearly, I think you heard Ryan Poles say at the Combine that when you have a clear vision, you can be more aggressive. And clearly they feel good about the vision that's there and their opportunity to go do the things that they've done the last couple of weeks.
By checking all these boxes, did the Bears make themselves into a playoff contender?
More boxes to check. There's more boxes to check, and there's a lot of heavy lifting ahead. And there's, they haven't practiced yet, David. They haven't had a first team meeting with Ben Johnson yet. And so this city it cracks me up, because it's just the amnesia.
Glad to amuse you. It's a fair question.
They haven't even had the draft yet.
And I'm not directing that entirely at you, but I just think that these March parades that are annual here, like, everyone forgets what the results in September and October and November are. And it's just like, all right, like just find a rest stop, get out of the car, take a deep breath, stretch your legs, and we'll get back in and we'll get on the road again to where we need to go. I think this team has to go in 2025 to where they were supposed to go in 2024. And that's to be playing meaningful football games in December and into January. And if all your cards play right and you get the right breaks, then you're playing in the playoffs. But man, it's a long way between here and there. And I think everybody's just so eager to proclaim this victory and shoot off the confetti cannons that it's just like, all right, let's let them have some practices first.
What are the questions you have for Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson today?
Well, so one of the ones that I'm curious about is, this is kind of more on the fringe, but just their plans in the quarterback room. Do they plan on adding a veteran there? Are they okay if it's just Caleb and Tyson and then a throw in, whether that's Austin Reed or somebody else? I want to know a lot more about Jonah Jackson's 2024. I want to know what they think about it, what they know about it, and how they kind of reconciled that with the opportunity to trade for him and understanding Ben's history with him. I think you'll get an honest answer there. I want to know about Joe Thuney's intangibles and Ryan Poles' history there and what they think he can do to be a tone setter in that room, and so those are three off the top that it'd just be nice to get a little bit of clarity from the guys at the top of what they see and what direction this thing can go.
We're talking with Dan Wiederer from the Chicago Tribune and the Take the North podcast. You can download the Odyssey app, search for 670 The Score, and tap follow to receive alerts on our Bears coverage of the Bears offseason with Dan Wiederer. Or if you can't get enough of that, check out the Take the North podcast with Mark Grody and Dan, breaking down all the key storylines as the Bears have been busy in free agency all week long. Follow the Take the North podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Dan, so crazy question, but how much does Ben Johnson rely on a fullback? And if the answer is even a little bit, does Kyle Juszczyk appeal to you at this advanced stage because the 49ers have let him go?
Well, look, like Ben has made hints that he likes to have fullback presence with what he wants to do offensively. When you have a proven guy that's done what Kyle Juszczyk has done, you certainly kick the tires on it and figure out what it would take to make it happen. I don't know if they're in the market there or if they're, what that market even is at this point. But the vision for the fullback position is one to explore. And, you'll explore all avenues, understanding, again, that you have a few more waves of free agency and then you have a draft next month.
I'm curious also about Jaquan Brisker, his future, how Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson feel about it, and if they're looking to add more depth at the position.
Regardless of Brisker's future, I think you need to add depth at the position, because I don't think that you can do anything with Jaquan Brisker's second contract until he plays out a full season and shows you that he's okay and can be on the field and not have any more setbacks with the head injury. And so you've got two starters there that Kevin Byard is up there in age. Brisker has been in and out of the lineup, and so you've got to start planning for the future. That's the other part of this, is just understanding that this is about more than 2025. And so as you're putting together these pieces that get everybody all juiced up for this year, you have to have a vision on the future and what happens when some of these guys are out of your plans, and how do you have pieces in place to immediately supplant them and fortify those units. Safety is certainly one where I'd like to see a little bit more teeth and a little bit of an upgrade there, for even if it's just depth.
There was a national report from CBS Sports that the Bears' new center, Drew Dahlman, turned down more money elsewhere to come to Chicago. Do you find anything to back that up? And did the Bears overpay for their center?
No, I don't think they overpaid. No, I mean, look, like Drew Dahlman will hopefully get a chance to speak with us today, tomorrow, Friday, sometime here in the next 36, 48 hours. And we can ask him directly about his desire to play here and what it meant for his decisions in free agency and get a little more clarity on that. I think, look, like when you walk into this offseason understanding that your top goal was fortifying the interior of the line, and then you go get two proven guards and the best center on the market, and you have plenty of salary cap space left to use to build other parts of your team, there's no way you overpaid for that. You just went out and tried to make your football team better, sturdier, more competitive, and they succeeded there. And so that price tag is something that you won't think about very often if Drew Dahlman is playing 16 games, 17 games next year and giving you what you think he can give you at the center position.
Do you think they're all set at left tackle with Braxton Jones, or is that a position that they'll probably look to add some competition there in the draft?
And one of the things we talked about is how much of the competition piece is Karan Amagaji. Like obviously 2024 was not his finest year, coming back from the injury, getting very little time on the playing field, didn't have any time in training camp to kind of learn the NFL game, and then getting thrown onto a Monday night stage in Minnesota that didn't go real well. But that's a premium draft pick that you used on a guy that you thought could be a developmental project and be a potential answer for you at the tackle position. I never, on the offensive line, sit on my hands and say we're good there until you've got five guys that are absolute difference makers week in and week out. And so while Braxton Jones has been a really nice story during his time here, I'm all for the competition game and hoping that they go out and for depth purposes alone add more to that room. You
mentioned Keenan Allen and that possibility. They'll explore it, consider it. But what other options do you think exist? Because the Bears only have, I think, 3 wide receivers under contract. That slot position in that offense could be a very productive one, a very lucrative one. Look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He was a 4th-round draft pick. You can have somebody succeed because of the schematic advantage that this offense provides if you have the right player. Do you think that they're going to find that right player in the draft or free agency, or it's just too hard to tell?
The draft is deep. It's probably a combination of both. You'll look at both places, and you got to be right on some of this stuff, and that's one of those things that gets lost in March as well, is that not all these moves work out the way you think they will, and so you had high hopes when you drafted Tyler Scott a couple years ago. He hadn't really done much for you in the 2 years he's been here. And so you've got to go find guys that fit, and then you've got to develop them into guys that can play. And if they don't, then you're filling holes that you thought you had filled. When we talk about kind of the excitement here in the month of March, there was a tweet I saw earlier this morning from people in Houston talking about the eye-popping athleticism and sky-high pass rushing potential of Darrell Taylor. Well, even Ruthie's old enough to remember when the Bears traded a 6th-round pick to get Darrell Taylor, and they got 3 sacks out of him. So it's like everyone was juiced up in August for the addition of Darrell Taylor, and 6 months before that, it was like, okay, we sent the 5 for Ryan Bates, and he started 2 games and played 105 snaps for you. So not all of these things are going to work out. you have to be realistic about that as a coaching staff and a front office, and you have to have yourself ready with replacements and plan Bs for when some of these things don't work out.
But you got to admit, though, Dan, great answer, great perspective. But you got to admit, though, this offseason is somewhat different because of Ben Johnson. And I think to get to this point, all the things that we have said, all the things you've written, and all the things that we have consumed leads us down that path that this is different because you've got a coach that everybody wanted and you've already got the quarterback.
Last offseason was different because of Caleb Williams, and the season before that was different because of DJ Moore and King Poles. And, I've been sitting in
you're no fun.
I love it, Dan.
I've been sitting in the last place media room for most of my time on the beat. And so, March doesn't tickle me the way it might tickle you. But at the start, I told you, I'm impressed with the things they've done. I think they're giving themselves a chance to have a chance. I just would prefer that every time I come on and, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that it's victory Monday, Wednesday, or Friday during September, October, November, and December. And so it's just hard to prematurely proclaim victory in March because I don't think there's anything here to win. You see all these things about everything that the Eagles have lost. Well, yeah, what a terrible year the Eagles are having, right? They lost a bunch of players in March because they were so good that they won a Super Bowl and they can't afford to keep everybody. So you want to be on that stage at some point where you're actually winning in February instead of March.
I've been fixated on this a little bit today, Dan, so I'll ask you your thoughts on who's going to be the Bears' kick and punt returner next season, which is a phase that I don't think should ever be overlooked.
Good question.
Thank you.
I don't have a great answer for that one. DeAndre Carter's a guy that I know that HT loved, and I don't know if there'll be any interest in bringing him back. He obviously saw at the start of the year last year when Keenan Allen was battling that heel issue that he was able to give you a little bit on offense, and then obviously did some things for you as a return specialist. It might be interesting to see if you could circle back with him at some point. I don't know where they're at. I haven't gotten to the return game yet in my pecking order, but that's one to keep on the radar here for the next few weeks.
So given your past in Minnesota and obviously you pay attention to what the Vikings are doing, what is your read on the sequence of events that led to where they are now? Sam Darnold leaving, Daniel Jones taking $14 million to be the backup in Indianapolis, and now the Vikings are investing a lot of faith in J.J. McCarthy given his knee situation, which could be deemed as risky.
Yeah, it's risky, but anytime you draft a quarterback in the first round in the top 10, it's a risk, and you do that because you believe in the player and you think he can be your long-term answer. And so they're gonna flip to that page quicker maybe than they wanted to. They got the really fun year out of Sam Darnold and won 14 football games and went to some places that people didn't think they could go. And they're not sitting on their hands either. And that's the other part of this is as everyone in Chicago gets very excited about the tunnel vision about what the Bears are doing, they're in a division that's really good and teams are making efforts to get better. And the Vikings are one of those. You talk about the addition of Jonathan Allen this week where you say, okay, well, now they've added another proven blue chip guy to their defense. And so they're not going to go away quickly. Some of these teams in the division may take a step back, but they are so many steps ahead of the Bears that step back might not allow you to catch up. And so you just got to stay aggressive, keep the foot on the pedal, keep making progress, keep making additions to your roster, and then we'll see where we're at when we start playing games.
Okay, we're out of time. You can go for your jog now. Clear your head.
It's a nice balance, refresh, Dan. Renew. We appreciate it.
I didn't mean to poop your party, David.
No, you're not pooping any party. I'm just reflecting what's happening. That's all. We both
get
are.
The kazoo out, blow it a couple times just to get David back in the mood.
There's no blind optimism here. It's just reflecting. Just looking ahead, seeing things that are different.
We don't get to talk about this 3 times a week like we used to.
I know.
So every once in a while,
I kind of miss that. It's all right.
Real talk moments, and Ruthie got to experience that with great amusement. I can tell it by her.
It was an honor. It was an honor.
You and Grody doing a great job on the Take the North podcast. Thanks, Dan.